Welcome back to the show. Our story for tonight is global healthcare because we're still in a pandemic. I know it's easy to forget that with everything that's happening in the world, with the US elections, the Bihar elections, Putin probably resigning, Arnab Goswami being arrested for alleged abetment of suicide, Umar Khalid being arrested under allegations of terrorism, the Goa government pushing for the ploughing of a wildlife sanctuary, and you get my point. The news doesn't stop. And so I forgive anyone that's forgotten that the virus is still around. But don't worry, I assure you that as long as you're here, I'll make you a bit more depressed. Let's get into it. As of this recording, more than 45 million people all over the world have had the coronavirus, out of which more than 1 million have lost their lives. In India itself, we've had around 8 million cases, out of which 100,000 people have died of the illness. Besides this, the virus has also triggered an economic recession, with the GDP falling from 8.2% in the first quarter of 2018 to 3.1% in the first quarter of 2020, and in the second quarter, it had reached negative 23.9%. Hundreds of thousands of people have lost their jobs. They've been rendered homeless. Entire industries are at the brink of collapse. And I'm sorry, are these too many numbers for you? Our writers just often phone it in and use the research verbatim. I'm sorry. Anyway, this is all before we've even hit a second wave of the virus. Much like Salman Khan's car on an unusually bumpy footpath, we've also been trying to flatten the curve. However, I really personally find it really weird that the virus hit us this bad. I mean, as a civilization in the past, we've dealt with so many global health crises, and yet it's COVID-19 that makes us hit rock bottom. Really? Like, dude, let's start with the bubonic plague. The bubonic plague literally led to glands swelling up and then bursting. Ebola made people bleed to death. Smallpox led to viral pimples and rashes that literally led to disintegration of facial skin. And yet it's COVID-19, this beer brand plagiarizer that makes us hit rock bottom. Really? So let's try to answer three questions. How did we get here? What do we do? And what comes next? Let's first address how we came here. In India, we've had a history of not dealing with epidemics really well. Take, for example, HIV or AIDS. Despite having the third largest HIV or AIDS epidemic in the entire world, up till 2012, all efforts made to combat the disease were entirely internationally funded. Credit where it's due, the Modi government did come in and ramp up the domestic investments and funds to combat that disease. But when you look at the report of tuberculosis, a disease that literally claims thousands of lives on a day-to-day basis in India, the Modi government's report on that is really poor. The National Tuberculosis Elimination Program is severely underfunded by a resounding 1,000 crore rupees. To add to that, the government has put the financial burden of combating that disease on the private healthcare sector, which has inevitably led to vaccines being extremely expensive and inaccessible to a majority of our population. Looking at the spread of the virus itself, I know it's very, very easy to simply blame it just on the current administration. I mean, don't get me wrong, they have messed up, and I personally feel like we should put Modi in jail for whatever that sadhu look he was going for, but we need to realize that the foundations of these issues in our healthcare system have existed long before this administration even came into power. By consistently undermanning, underfunding, and undertraining our healthcare system, it's like we were primed to fail. And by not caring about the mental health of our healthcare professionals, especially those from the public healthcare sector, it's like we were waiting for something like this to happen. And so when it did happen, how did we respond? India's coronavirus relief attempts ranged from lockdowns that were announced with barely any notice period to opening the PM CARES Fund, whose funds are almost as transparent as stone. So, what can we do about this? We can start by talking about an organization that is literally created for assisting with these issues and discussing these issues: the World Health Organization, WHO, or as former United States President Donald Trump likes to call it, China's puppet.
They're a puppet of China. They're China-centric, to put it nicer.
Actually, isn't it fun that we don't have to give a fuck about his opinion anymore? The World Health Organization, or the WHO, is a specialized agency of the United Nations that's responsible for international public health. And its response to the coronavirus was actually really fast. On the 31st of December 2019, China reported a cluster of pneumonia cases, of which the causes were unknown, in the city of Wuhan. And on the 1st of Jan 2020, the WHO activated its crisis group and it went on an emergency footing. Now, many millions of cases later, many people have said that the World Health Organization failed to do their job as well as they were expected to. But we need to realize that without their tireless work and their consistent efforts, we would have long crossed the above 1 million death toll that we are at right now. And I find this so funny because you can see a stark difference between those countries that applied and took the suggestions of the WHO and those that continued their tradition of half-hearted attempts at relief and didn't take the virus seriously. And a perfect example for this is the United Kingdom.
A jump unlike any before. A record number of people have tested positive for coronavirus in the UK. More than 33,000, a rise of almost 46% in a day.
The virus has started to spread again in an exponential way. Infections are up. Hospital admissions are climbing.
You ever think about how that fluffy-haired man's ancestors literally colonized us? Not that I'm trying to imply that we're any better or anything. It's just kind of surprising how Boris Johnson gets this close to fucking up as much as Modi. In that country. Damn. For a country with a population of merely 60 million, the UK has had about 1.23 million coronavirus cases, with a death toll that's consistently increasing by a few hundreds every single day. Moreover, he himself has tested positive for the coronavirus. Need I say more? Positive reminds me though, there are countries in the world that took the virus seriously and handled it properly. Canada, for example, a country that spends 11.6% of its GDP on its healthcare. I know we're hyping up Canada a lot this season, but what do I say? They've got their shit together. India, on the other hand, spends just a bit more than 1% of its GDP on its healthcare system. However, the BJP has promised that by 2025, they will ramp up the healthcare expenditure to a grand total of, drumroll please, 2.5%. Really? If you're going to lie, you might as well aim higher. 5%. Why not? It's not just about the expenditure though. There were clear-cut policies that could have been implemented to make the lockdown more effective. Announcing it earlier, giving a longer notice period, creating policies that would help daily wage laborers and their families stay afloat would help in not losing so many lives. Because we need to realize that the lower financial strata didn't get to deal with the pandemic and the lockdown the way you and I did. By going into an endless pit of despair, and which leads to the creation of a substandard political comedy show that gives you some sense of satisfaction and validation. I don't mean to invalidate the struggles of the middle class. I know the pandemic and the lockdown, they have been hard. We've been exhausted, lost, scared, uncertain, lonely, burnt out, and weirdly horny. So now that we've answered those questions, let's get into what comes next. Earlier in the episode, I mentioned the bubonic plague. One thing about it is that historians of that time mentioned that after the bubonic plague, there was a more secular society with less class divides. As explained by the author John Kelly in his book about the Black Death, he says that we are all spectacles of the world. Dust we are, unto dust we return. Now compare that mindset to the sentiments we have these days. Nowadays, the idea that a horrible crisis would bring a blameless politician and helpless citizens together seems less like history and more like the plot of a terrible political drama.
मेरा गुजरात चल रहा है.
Oh, wait, it is. When we look at a disease that's ruined millions of lives, what's scary isn't that it's changed the world, but the fact that it hasn't. Facing the indirect consequences of a global pandemic has led to a lot of us leaning towards conspiracy theories and the rest of us just shutting it all out. And none of these tendencies are going anywhere anytime soon. Combine that with the global trend of conservative anti-science governments that we're seeing these days, and it's very clear that the next pandemic is not going to be taken seriously at all. Oh, and the next pandemic is coming really soon. Because of global warming, all of the viruses that had frozen up in our glaciers are now melting and entering our water faster and faster. So the next pandemic isn't going to be taking 100 years. It's coming soon. Now, I'm not saying that this should lead to panic or paranoia. I just want to point out that panic and passivity are on a spectrum, not a binary. And now I am no one and I will not be telling you where you should lie on this spectrum, but currently we are leaning more towards passivity. And it's not helping us. I know I said I can't blame anyone that's forgotten about the coronavirus. But you know what? I'm going to change my stance on that. Because maybe I sound like a doomsayer, but when the next pandemic does hit, I don't want to feature on a substandard comedy show to prove that the ignorance of the past has led to the apathy of the future. That's our show. Thanks for watching.